It's a great day in the 49th District, the Mon Valley. I'm State Rep Bud Cook. In this program, I want to continue my visit to the Greater Washington County Food Bank. You'll recall in part one of my visit, I learned what happens inside the building, the houses, the food bank, and their thrift store. Now, in part two, I want to show you the amazing things that are happening and are planned on the land outside the building. My tour guide is a talented, ambitious, and caring young woman named Morgan Livingston. Well, we've moved out from up the top from the food bank, Morgan, and you've brought us to this wonderful orchard. Could you tell us a little bit how special this orchard is?
Yeah, so here at the food bank, when we moved into our warehouse facility, we were fortunate enough that our warehouse came with a 24-acre property.
Wow.
And we decided to try to use that to raise food to be able to give out to the community. So one of the first projects we did when we moved here was starting this orchard. Through the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation in Pittsburgh, we were able to get all these fruit trees you see here were donated by the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation. Several of them were planted last spring, and then we planted 25 additional trees this spring. We had a lot of volunteers and the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation that came out and helped, and they planted all kinds of trees. We have apple trees, pear trees, peach trees, plum trees, and all these will come into production within the next couple years, 2 to 3 years probably, and all the fresh fruit that we're able to produce through this orchard can be donated through the food bank to give people access to fresh local produce.
Well, that's sort of special for the Greater Washington County Food Bank operation. I don't think there's many food banks that have gone in and started this type of program. We're sort of unique in that.
It is, and we definitely are fortunate to have access to this property here to be able to do that in this area. And we actually have, the orchard was kind of just the beginning. We have a lot of other plans with this property. So at this point, we'll probably go over and check out the barn we have here on the property that we plan to turn into an agriculture education center.
Okay, well that's great and super. You know, I was part of that volunteer group that came down in the spring, and it was nice to see so many volunteers involved here up at the food bank. So let's move on to our next stop, which will be the Barn Education Center, and that's going to be really special also. Morgan, we've transitioned now down to the barn, and a lot of people may not know this about me, but I actually grew up on a farm, and I spent a lot of time up in the top of the barn because the short guys always ended up in the top of the barn when we were doing hay. So we have the barn behind us, and it's a little bit, to say the least, in a rough condition, but I know we have some great plans for the barn.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is, a lot of people recognize this type of barn that we see behind us. I grew up on a farm as well, and this is what people would call a bank barn. This one's probably about 100 years old or so. Wow. And obviously it's in some type of disrepair at this point. It was probably used for different types of livestock, maybe pigs, maybe some dairy cows from what we can tell inside. But at this point we have bigger plans for it to really go with the educational programming that we want to do as part of the farm. So not only do we want to produce food for the community, but we want to provide education to the kids in our schools, to people who are interested in farming or gardening, and how they can grow food themselves. So as far as that educational piece, we plan to renovate this bank barn right here into an agriculture education facility.
Wow.
Yeah, so we are applying for a grant right now to do that work. We plan to, the top part of the facility will be renovated. We'll try to keep those elements of the beams and the beautiful space up there, turn that into a classroom type space where we can have classes, we can bring schools here for field trips and service learning opportunities, we can host different trainings here, and we can use the bottom for different parts of like food processing facilities and things that we'll need to process the food we're growing here. So there's a lot of different things we'll do with it, and we're applying for that grant right now. I know that you're helping us with a support letter and things for that, which we really appreciate. And so, yeah, that's a big part of the step forward for the food bank here.
We kind of touched on the grant. What type of dollar level are we talking about in order to do something like this, to make that transition and get involved?
It'll probably be around $250,000 for this whole renovation, to try to both keep some of that historical character of the barn, but also do some of the updates that we need to make it a modern education center as far as the smart tech, the conference and smart technology and things like that.
Well, one of the areas you touched on was education and the students. So I would imagine that we have a pretty big, or at least a pretty large footprint proposed for what we want to do with the students. Do you have a rough idea of how many areas will touch school district-wise?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember the number of districts off the top of my head, but I know that with our location here, we're actually close to Greene County and Fayette County as well. So not only do we want to reach the school districts in Washington County, and we've already had schools out here for field trips and service learning opportunities, but we also want to reach out to those other counties, districts in those counties as well. So we do think it could have a pretty big footprint. We also have California University. I know that you work closely with them. They're very close to us here. We have other universities close by that we want to collaborate with to potentially help them with their course offerings. I think we've talked about the youth agriculture entrepreneurship program that we're looking to start also as part of that grant. So we would be working with high school students to have an agriculture business plan competition, and we'd be partnering with local universities to provide education and help provide scholarships for those students as well.
We're all about building teams, so of course I'm very excited about that. I think the other area that people will be interested in is also, getting the Farm Bureau involved as part of it.
Yeah.
The #1 agricultural footprint in the Commonwealth, it's the largest industry we have.
Yes, yes.
So that's very exciting. We have the barn and we have some other acreage. Let's kind of go down this way, and what we'll do is take a look about the size of the property that we have to operate with.
Absolutely.
Which is very, very exciting.
Yeah, you can see our hillside right here. As part of our 24-acre property, we have this field. You can see the tree line. We have all the ground in that area. And it does look a little rough right now. There's not much that's being done with it currently, but again, we have plans to utilize that in the future. So we're going to work to renovate this pasture, get it mowed, renovate the ground and the pasture here, and we will start a pastured poultry production here with the mobile chicken units that allow the poultry to be on that pasture. We'll also probably do some traditional vegetable row cropping in some of the flatter areas. So those will be not only opportunities for food production, but also education for people who want to learn how to do that type of farming on their own.
Of course, I am never bashful about asking people to volunteer. I know one of the needs that we have right now is we would really love to have that acreage brush hogged so we could clear it off. So this is our chance to kind of reach out to our local farmers or others to explain to them exactly what the first step would be on the property.
Yeah, we do have, there are some undesirable vegetation growing up there with it not being farmed in a few years. So that is really important. The first step is getting that brush hogged or mowed so that we can start to get that more desirable grasses and pasture coming up.
Very good. Do we have any idea on the former farm, was that pasture or was that hay field, or do we have any idea?
I believe it was, and I personally don't have much experience with this area, but from what I'm hearing, there was some hay that used to be made off of that a few years ago, and potentially some pasture for like livestock.
Grazing. Right, because it was kind of, I know we have different types of farms in the district and in the region. We have our dairy, we have our beef. So actually growing up, our family had about 40 head of cattle that we ran for beef, so it was really good. Any other plans for different things as we go through with the acreage that we have?
Yeah, we definitely, we're still kind of fleshing out those details. We want to be open to what the community wants to see and what kind of educational opportunities would be helpful. We've talked about like bramble production of like raspberries, blackberries, things like that. We may branch out into other types of livestock, like maybe sheep and goats at some point. So we still want to be open to any other opportunities that might come down the road.
Very good. And I know we had mentioned what, in regards to Cal U and some of their participation. How do you see that going forward with the acreage and that integration up here?
Yeah. So Cal U is a great partner. They're a great resource to the community here, and they're literally within 5-10 minutes of our facility here. So it's just a natural partnership. And they have a farm as well, but we can offer, we can work with them on class offerings once we get the education center. That will provide space for any classes that they want to hold right here on the property. We already have their interns come and work with us and are a huge help to us here at the food bank. And we'll be able to, if there's any opportunity to do like trials of different types of crops, we can help them by providing acreage and facilities here to do that as well.
Great, and I think we would be remiss if I didn't ask you, a lot of the students from Cal U come up and volunteer.
Yes,
and their impact is very big. Approximately how many students are involved, you know, on a go-to-go basis? I know probably less now that they're out, but when they're in school.
I mean, from Cal U alone, we probably had at least 30 or 40 students.
Wow.
Just in this. I've only been here since February. Just in that time, we've probably had that many students, and even from other schools, I mean, it's up to at least 200 volunteers that have been in this program, and they've volunteered over 500 hours. So, I mean, volunteer participation is a huge benefit to us.
I think that's just so exciting to me, because that's one of my 3 main assets in the 49th District is Cal U, the Mon Valley Hospital, and the Monongahela River itself. So that's very exciting. You know, the outreach that they're doing is really good. Now, this is our traditional segment of farming, but I also know that we're going to attack it futuristic and technology.
Yes.
I think what we should do is transition to the hydroponics proposed and kind of let people know what the future holds for the food bank and the farm here.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go check that out.
Very good. Thank you. Wow. Morgan, a shipping container at a food bank?
Oh, yeah.
This is very interesting. What plans do you have for shipping containers? And I think we have 6?
Yes, we do. So this is part of a grant we received. We received a NAP grant through Pennsylvania DCED, Department of Community and Economic Development. And the idea behind this is to use the most modern agricultural practices to raise as much fresh produce as we can year-round. And that will allow us to donate a lot of that produce through the food bank, but also to market a portion of it to cover the operating costs of the farm operation. So what we specifically plan to do, we have 6 of these shipping containers. They're 40 feet long, and they will be used to put aquaponics and hydroponics systems inside them to produce tilapia, fresh fish, as well as greens. We also plan to incorporate a greenhouse that we can use to raise fruiting vegetables such as tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers in a Dutch bucket type of system, which is basically just a bucket full of like perlite, soilless medium, and like small pebbles, and the nutrient solution is pumped through right through the bucket. So it doesn't require soil, and you're able to do production indoors and stretch it out longer across the year. You're not totally dependent on weather or rain. You can kind of add those elements and control the environment.
Perfect. Now, in full disclosure, I can tell you that I wasn't familiar with hydroponics or aquaponics until about a year ago.
Sure.
You know, it's really interesting what you learn and what you get subjected to as a representative. So for our folks, could you explain a little bit about hydroponics and how it works and that part
so
of it?
hydroponics is basically the concept of growing produce in a soilless medium. So instead of growing in the ground, you're growing it whether it's in a bucket or something that almost looks like a gutter type of pipe. And there's some type of medium, whether it's like perlite, which is like those little white specks that you see in potting soil, or pea gravel or rock wool. And so the plants are planted in that, and the nutrient solution is pumped through the system. So you can really control the nutrients that they're getting, the environment, to allow you to produce year-round. And aquaponics is very similar. It's just the process of having fish in a tank, and then processing, the plants process the fish waste, so that becomes their fertilizer, and you can grow both fish and plants in that process.
Very good. Now, being on the Fish and Game Commission, I'm always interested when I hear about fish.
Yeah.
I think that the fish of choice now is tilapia. And was some discussion that we had earlier about, you know, the possibilities that if we could meet all the regulations and everything, we would be able to provide that to the food bank as well.
Yeah, so the reason that tilapia are common in systems is that they're a very hardy fish. We are beginning managers. This is the first time that we've tried this type of system. So tilapia will be like a hardy fish that are easier for us as we're getting started to work with. They're pretty tolerant of changing conditions, although you still have to have good water quality, of course, and practice good management. And they're also a very, very good eating fish. We'll hopefully be able to market some of those fish and potentially even donate some for the food bank.
Very good.
So.
And I want to kind of wrap this up. I know we have one of our volunteers that's working with us. Is actually, I believe it's in Trinity School District that has
Oh yes, absolutely. So Trinity High School is a big partner with us, and they actually have a what they call the leafy green machine. It's a system inside a shipping container, much like this, and theirs is set up just to grow hydroponic lettuce. And they've done a great job with that system. They've incorporated it in their curriculum. They actually donate some of their lettuce to the food bank. And we were partly inspired by that vision and trying to create more educational opportunities so that other schools besides just Trinity could come out here and learn through this system if they don't have that type of thing at their own school.
That's so very important that we get our young people, our future leaders, if you will, involved in the possibilities in the technology. This is part of it. We also have the fish tanks, and we want to show the people that. But from here, let's go to the raised garden beds. I think that's really exciting as well, and we'll move over to that.
All right, sounds good.
Morgan, this is absolutely amazing. It's not how I remember gardening growing up, but I noticed we have raised beds here.
Yes, so this was another one of the very first things we did when we came onto this property and wanted to start producing food. We actually created these raised beds out of pallets that we have pallets here at the food bank that come in when we get shipments of canned goods and things. So it was a free resource we had. We were able to basically cut them in half and use 2 pallets to make each raised bed. So most of the materials we already had them or were able to be donated. We have 15 of these right now, and we raise a variety of different things in these raised beds. We have, tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce. We have an herb garden right here. And this is entirely done through volunteers, basically. I have regular volunteers who come every week to help us out, and they are really the key to making this all work.
Well, I think that's what's really important, and it has its really appeal to me, is the volunteerism up here is so very, very, very important.
Absolutely.
So how far away do your volunteers come? I mean, how big is the footprint? And, describe a little bit the organizations.
Sure. Great question. As far as we have several regular volunteers who are stopping in here at the raised bed gardens on a weekly basis, some of them a couple times a week, to check in on things, do the weeding, do additional plantings, help me harvest items. So a lot of the people that come regularly are relatively close to the food bank area.
I volunteer here at the food bank because of the satisfaction of helping others, and there's so much ground here that we can produce all these vegetables and food for the bank.
Okay, and I do it. I'm a local person. I garden. I come here to be with other gardeners, to learn more, and also to share. You know, we have so much land here. Why not use it to produce fresh produce for people who can put it to good use?
But we've had groups come in from all across the county, and probably even some neighboring counties, to do like the bigger projects as far as when we actually put these together, when we filled them with soil, the things we did over in the orchard. We've had larger groups come from like 45 minutes away, an hour away, just to help us out here. So that's a huge benefit to us.
So from the raised bed aspect, you could basically do this anywhere and you could kind of expand out, correct?
Yes, exactly. And that's really one of the key goals of this raised bed garden. It is, when you look at the big picture as far as maybe comparing us to a larger vegetable farmer, it is, you know, it's a smaller scale of production. Although we are able to harvest a lot of produce through this raised bed. We've donated over 150 pounds of produce this season alone already, and we still will have hopefully much more produce and tomatoes and things like that throughout the rest of the season. But really the key part of this is to provide that education, because this is something that anyone could do at home. If they have a small yard, small acreage, they could easily make their own raised bed out of pallets or any other type of materials they may have. And it really is a very pretty labor efficient way to garden. There's less bending over to reach the beds, it's more accessible. It seems to reduce the weed and pest pressure a little bit, although you still have some of that. And we've had some of our volunteers are experienced gardeners, but some of them have very little or no garden experience. And we've had like middle schoolers and kids come out. We had a Head Start group come out. And it was so cool to see those kids that don't have garden experience, but they're willing to try like something like a beet green that they wouldn't eat at home, but since they helped raise it, they're willing to try it. And they're excited about gardening and getting their hands dirty. So that's one of my favorite parts of this, is getting kids involved.
Well, and that absolutely, and I know you and I had a conversation a couple of days ago. I had stopped in to see the superintendent of Best Center School District, Chris, and he informed me, and I wasn't aware of this, that they had a greenhouse there that currently wasn't in production and use. And of course, I get excited when we talk about our future leaders and things that they're going to learn. So a little bit of outreach to the schools at this point, or is that more in the future? How are the students, you know, currently, and what would be our long-range plans?
We've definitely already started that. Everything from having those preschoolers and like those Head Start kids out here. I've gone to the Salvation Army camps with young kids and did workshops with them, and then all the way up to having we've had a homeschool group out. We've had middle school and high school groups, FFA groups here. So really, no matter what the students' level of experience, whether they have no experience or they're FFA kids who maybe grew up on a farm, they all can get a benefit from this experience here, and they're a huge help to us to get these projects done. So yeah, we've already started those service learning opportunities and field trips and workshops, but having that education center in the barn will only allow us to expand those programs even more and work with more school districts.
Very good. Now this is just a little snapshot. We have 24 acres here that we can kind of expand. What's the vision there?
Yeah, so we have all kinds of plans for how we want to develop and grow this program and this property, and it's all revolving around, we want to make sure we provide agriculture education to people about where their food comes from. We want to provide fresh produce that we can donate through the food bank and give to people who need it. And we want to really spur on the agriculture economy in this area. So we want to train and encourage and inspire up-and-coming farmers. We want to create market outlets for their products to make them successful. And really, we believe that agriculture is a huge economic engine in this community. And as we've seen other industries like steel and coal decline a little bit, we think agriculture can really come in and help spur that economy on in this area. So we want to be a part of that. And part of that includes increasing our production, providing that produce to the food bank, marketing a portion of it to cover our operating costs, doing the educational partnerships with Cal U and with our local schools, and even eventually doing kind of like internship and ag business incubator experiences to help develop the future farmers coming on. And eventually we'd like to perhaps even have a farm market here where we can market some of our produce, provide a market for other farmers in the area, and really bring those things full circle. So.
And that's so important. I do a lot of work with the farm bureaus, both here in Washington and Fayette, and one of my concerns is where is that next generation going to come from, you know, farmers to get involved, because a lot of our farmers are getting up in age and doing that. So I think that's very important that we kind of, you know, expose, again, our students, our future leaders to experiences where it might be really good. Now, I found the one thing that's most important, we've talked a lot about volunteers and how important they are to sustaining. How do we get people, or what should they do, Morgan, to volunteer to come help this to be even a bigger success?
Yeah, like I said, we rely on volunteers. I'm the only full-time staff right now on the farm project, so volunteers and interns are a huge, like we can't do it without them. So we do have some people in the raised bed gardens that are helping to maintain them. We can, you know, probably use a couple more. As we get the aquaponics and hydroponic systems up and running, we could use volunteers to come on a weekly basis or whenever they're able to help maintain those systems. Honestly, a big need for us is like the orchard needs to be mowed on a regular basis to keep rodents like rabbits, mice from chewing up our trees. So even something like helping us with the mowing, there's all kinds of, and if they prefer to go be in the food bank, helping in the warehouse and things like that, like there's so many opportunities that we can plug people into.
Very good. Morgan, I think the most amazing part of your job, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but when I come up to find you, you're very seldom in your office. You're out back on the tractor mowing, you're out here working in the gardens, and it's just really so refreshing, I know, for me to see somebody that's really kind of talking about, you know, the whole operation here. So how did you get here? What's your background? Tell us a little bit about Morgan.
That's a good question, yeah. So I did grow up on a farm. My family has a farm in Indiana County, Pennsylvania, about almost 2 hours from here. They raise livestock, which we sell meat at a farmer's market. So I grew up very involved with agriculture. A lot of my family is in agriculture. I was very involved in 4-H, so I got a lot of these skills from that. And I actually, I went to our local PASHA universities. I went to Shippensburg and Millersville for my bachelor's and master's in social work, and was a case manager for a few years as well. So this coming to the food bank has really combined those two interests and allowed me to use the farming experience and the passion I have for that, and to try to help the community through that as well.
Morgan, it's been an absolutely wonderful visit. I know on behalf of all my bosses in the 49th District, and actually your footprint is so big, you're touching Greene County, you're touching Fayette, you're touching certainly Washington. Just absolutely exciting for somebody, you know, in my position to see you involved and building the team that you're building. Congratulations. I know you have a great vision and you have a great team around you, which will only grow. So we want to invite people to come and see you, see the operation, and most importantly, we want them to volunteer and be part of the program.
Absolutely, totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yep, absolutely.
I hope you've enjoyed this extended visit to the Greater Washington County Food Bank. I think you'll agree that this innovative organization is doing so much more than passing out food. They are teaching people how to change their lives and the lives of their family members for the better. I can't wait to see what the next few years brings for the food bank. I'm State Rep Bud Cook, and I work for you, the people of the 49th District, the Mon Valley. You'll see my contact information in a moment. Please let me know how I can serve you better or help you with any state government related issues. Thank you, and God bless you and your family.